everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Artesprix, and in this video I'm going to show you how we are going to use the Artesprix sublimation products to sublimate onto a metal water bottle. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to go through the supplies. You can also find all of the supplies linked in the description below for easy access. So of course the first thing you're going to need is a water bottle. I'm going to take the top off of the water bottle. You do not want to put this into your oven or heat. Also, there's a straw inside. Take that out as well. And then there is a piece of paper inside of the water bottle that you want to remove as well. So you're going to have this ready to go. And I would also recommend having a lint roller on hand. The rest of the supplies that you're going to need for what I'm going to show you today, you can use any of the Artesprix sublimation products, which include the sublimation stamp inks, which is what I'm going to be sharing today, the markers, or the sublimation paints as well. You could also use the sublimation stamp ink refills if you wanted to get a little bit different look. So this project could be done with a wide variety of the materials. Basics that you will need: copy paper. Simple, plain, ordinary copy paper works for the sublimation products. Pair of scissors, pencil. Pencil does not transfer to your sublimation blank, so it is a great way to get your template size and the size for your project. I am going to be using the Artesprix sublimation ink pads in all of the colors. We're going to make a very bright, vivid water bottle today. And then I'm going to also be using the Artesprix sublimation stamps, the alphabet stamp. Something to note about words and text when you are sublimating is that you need to have them mirrored. Because of the way sublimation works, we're going to be putting our design onto the copy paper, and then it transfers with pressure and high heat onto that sublimation blank. So anything that you use needs to be mirrored, or in this case, the other stamp sets that I'm going to be using, which are some paint splatters, those would be mirrored. So whatever you see on your copy paper, the opposite is going to show up onto your sublimation blank. So I do have several other stamp sets here. You could use a wide variety of stamp sets with the sublimation inks for your projects. I do have the Artesprix sublimation protective paper. I have cut this down to size to fit within my oven. Make sure that any oven or heat source that you are using is dedicated for sublimation. Once you use it for sublimation, you do not want to use this for any food related items. So it is a dedicated craft oven that I am using here. I'm using the protective paper to lay down on top of the metal tray inside. So I have an oven over here, a convection oven. It will be set at 370 degrees, and we will be putting this into the oven for 6 minutes total. So you can have that warming up. I'm going to wait a little bit before I turn this on so it doesn't warm up my room. And we're going to get this design. You're also going to need the tumbler wraps for sublimation from Artesprix. There are 5 in this package, and we're going to be using one of them with the water bottle, which also means we will need some sort of heat source like a heat gun, which is what I have here, in order to use this shrink wrap around your sublimation water bottle. This is one of my favorite parts of the process, is watching that. And then some heat safe gloves, because it is metal, so it is going to be extremely hot. And then I also have sublimation heat tape, the Artesprix sublimation protective pad, so I have a safe surface to bring that hot object out onto when I bring it out of the oven. I'm also going to be using the Artesprix stamp block and the Artesprix multi-purpose cleaner for cleaning off my stamps. Another thing to have on hand, just handy, that I'm going to use is a paper trimmer, because I can't cut a straight line. So when I go to measure my sublimation blank, I'm going to use the paper trimmer to help me with that. And then I just have a silicone mat underneath so that I can protect my workspace from the sublimation ink. I think that is all that we need for this. Again, those links are in the description below, as well as additional information on Artesprix products that you can check out there. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing to get started is I'm going to move some of this out of the way until I need that. And then I'm going to take one sheet of my copy paper. I can set the rest aside for right now. It's great to have extras because if you don't like your design, you are simply out a sheet of copy paper, nothing expensive. You can always create more designs, and maybe you go back to the original one that you really do like. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to make sure, for my sake, I'm going to place my design on the flattest part of this water bottle. You can test and you can try to get a full design onto the rest of it. It is coated with the sublimation, so it will take on the ink. However, anytime you have an object that has multiple dimensions around it for the circumference, it gets a little bit more tricky to get into some of these areas and have a good, vibrant design. It can be done, but it does take practice. So I'm going to stick with the size right here, the flattest part of this water bottle, on purpose. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make some measurement marks. So I'm going to place this at the bottom. I'm going to use the bottom straight edge of my paper, and then I'm going to make a mark here at where I want that design to end. So I'm drawing marks for my template. So I have this mark. What I can do now is I'm going to take my paper trimmer, and I'm simply going to use that mark as a straight line. And my paper trimmer is much better at cutting a straight line than I am. So I'm just going to save that sheet of copy paper for another time. Now the next thing I can do is I want to measure this. With sublimation blanks, you don't necessarily want to have an overlap, because that ink can transfer and affect how it looks on that overlap. So you may get some different variances in how the sublimation ink will look because of the two sheets of paper over top of each other. So I'm simply going to take this and I'm going to mark where these two meet. And when we do the design, I'm going to try to keep the design somewhat cohesive on the edges so it doesn't look like a visible seam. Now it will just depend on the design that you're working with. So now that I have my second mark, I'm going to take this paper trimmer again, and you'll have much more space in your area to work with, hopefully, than I do on this video. So I'm just going to use that and cut that little piece off there. Now I have my template size to work with, and I don't need to worry about these pencil marks. The pencil does not transfer to your sublimation blank. So now that I have this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my stamps, and I'm going to use the sublimation inks and create a pattern. So first, I want to explain how I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to speed up the video because every person is going to work at a different pace in what they like, and you can watch that process with me. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp in my pattern on this paper with the different colors that I want on my water bottle. Then next, I'm going to take my Artesprix Sublimation stamp set, and I'm going to remember that these are mirrored stamps. So your letters are going to be mirrored when you put them onto your copy paper. The great part about the Artesprix stamp block is that it also has lines. So you have options here. You can use these lines to get a straight line for your words and the sayings that you want to put on it. You want to make sure when you're putting them on that when you stamp it, it's going to read backwards on here so it transfers to your design properly. So it's going to read, in this case, I'm going to put dream on this, and then it's going to read backwards when we stamp it. So put all these letters on here. And I just like to get my stamps lined out, and then I can adjust them. So that's not quite enough space. And I think I'm going to vary it so I don't have to get it on a straight line. But when we go to stamp this, it's going to read backwards so that when it transfers onto our sublimation blank, it reads forwards. All but I wanted to give you an idea of using this Artesprix stamp block so that you can get a straight line if you choose to do so. Now I'm going to speed up this video and I'm going to create my pattern background for my vibrant water bottle. Now you can use a combination of any stamps that you have on hand or what you would like to create with. I am using a bunch of different ones that I just have in my studio, and this is paint splatters, so I am going to ink that up, and it helps also to stamp it off beforehand as well if you want to get a crisp, clean image. And then I'm just taking a paper towel and using the Artesprix cleaner and cleaning off that stamp. You can also use a stamp cleaner scrub brush as well to clean those off. So I'm just cleaning that off between colors. And if you clean your stamps off very well with the sublimation ink, it is water soluble. So you shouldn't have any problems with using your stamps with other inks after that. You just want to make sure they're all clean. So everybody's pattern is going to be different. I just tried to randomly put all of these paint splatters all over the place, and I ended up with my pattern. I filled in a little bit of spots there, here and there, so there was not white space. And then I'm adding, using the Sublimation alphabet stamp set, and I'm going to add this onto my design. Keep in mind that your words are going to be mirrored on your copy paper. So when it does the sublimation transfer, it transfers it to read correctly. So any text has to be mirrored when you put it onto your piece of copy paper. So I am just taking that, again, cleaning my stamps off, and then I'm rearranging the letters for the next word, which is create. And I don't have enough of the letters, so I just stamped the first little bit of it, and then I'm going to reuse the E for that. Since it is not in a straight line, I did this on purpose, so I didn't have to have it in a straight line. Then I am able to easily just add that E and stamp that to the end of the letter. And you'll see me do that for the next word as well. So it just gives it a little bit different look. You can use all kinds of words, all kinds of stamps. There are so many different possibilities with the Artesprix sublimation products. It is such a cool process of a scientific process that with heat and pressure, the sublimation ink turns into a gas and transfers to that sublimation blank. Now, once you have your design, everybody's design is going to look a little bit different in how you create that. You want to make sure that it is completely dry before you go to put it onto your sublimation blank. You don't want the ink to transfer before you really want it to transfer. And then you're going to grab a lint roller, and you just want to make sure if your sublimation blank has been out that you're getting any of the fibers off of it. Any debris or fibers, oils, things like that can affect the outcome of your design. And then I'm also going to kind of remove this so it doesn't get stuck on there. You might want to do this before you lint roll it, because we're going to be putting it into a hot oven. So I'm going to remove that sticker on the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to take this and I'm going to position it where I want it on my blank. And you want to have your heat tape handy. And you can have this meet up in the middle, position it onto your blank where you want it to be. Remember, once you come into this area that changes dimensions, or the rolled area, you can get it a little bit tricky in how you are, whether you can get ghosting or anything like that, because your sublimation design cannot be tight around those areas. So position it where you would like it onto your blank. And then you want it to be tight. So you want to, whatever you need to do to get your template around your blank as tight as you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then grab my heat tape here, and I'm going to secure the first piece of tape. And everybody has a different method of taping this. Whatever works for you, and it can take practice. So then I just pulled that tape tight across that. Since I use my paper trimmer to cut the straight lines and the edge of my paper, I know the edges are straight. So you want to try to line those up. And then you want to do the same thing and on one side, and then pull that tight so that it's tight in that seam area. And there shouldn't be, because of the way I did the design, too much of a seam that you see. It's just going to depend on your product. So now I'm going to finish taping this a little bit. You do want it tight around your blank as much as possible, but then we are also going to add shrink wrap onto that. And then I'll add one more piece of tape. And you can also, if some people tape down the seams, some people tape on the sides. Since our design doesn't go over the edges of this shaped edge on the water bottle, I don't think it's necessary, but you can definitely do it if you want to. Now we're going to get into the shrink wrap. I love this part of the process, but it's probably just me. So I'm going to take one of these. These are a little plastic sleeve, and you can fit that down over the water bottle. And what this is this is your pressure. Since I am using a oven, I don't have anything that's going to hold that design super tight except that heat tape. So this is going to suck down onto the design, and you want to try to get it as flat as possible across the entire water bottle. If you get too many bubbles or anything, that pressure is going to be off, and you may see that in your finished product. Again, all of this just takes practice, but anybody can do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up the video. This is going to be a little bit loud, and I'm going to use my heat gun to apply this shrink wrap to the metal water bottle. So first, I am going to grab my heat safe gloves. Because it is metal, it will heat up very, very quickly, so you want to be safe. And then I am going to clear this off for my protective surface. And I'm going to set my blank down here when it is completely finished so that I don't burn my table surface as it is. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I love watching this. Okay, I'll set that tip. That's very hot. It's going to be on my protective surface. I love this Artesprix protective pad. So there I have my shrink wrap, and now I am ready to set this into my oven for 6 minutes at 370 degrees. I will be rotating this after 3 minutes, and that is just because of my oven, because I have the convection oven and I'm using a tray. I want to give it the 3 minutes on one side and then rotate it completely to the other side for an additional 3 minutes. So we will put this into the oven, and then we'll come back and take a look at the reveal. One of the favorite parts. So here it is in my oven. I did 3 minutes on one side and 3 minutes on the other, and then I set it onto the Artesprix protective pad for the surface to cool. Now this is my second favorite part of this entire process, and that is the reveal. But you do want to make sure that your blank is cooled down so you don't burn yourself. And I'm even going to still use my heat safe gloves, which can be somewhat cumbersome sometimes, but I'm going to start by taking this off. And this part can be messy, as you can see, but I just usually take it all off and then I sweep it into my trash can. So we'll do that real quickly. Okay, now once that is mostly all removed, I wanted to do that before I did the reveal. A little bit of the paper got off right there, but now you can just take and peel off your heat protective tape. And I am using a sharp pointing object. You just don't want to scratch your blank. So be very careful when you're doing that. But that protective tape is sticks very, very well. So I should have made little tabs. That would help. Always think of those things after I do it. So you can just make a little tab here. I'll show you here with this piece. Usually you can just make a little tab at the very end of your heat tape like that, and it would be easy to pull off. I did not do that, so it just takes a little bit more. Building the anticipation for the reveal. So exciting. Okay, here we go. And here is our bright colored water bottle. And let's take a closer look at these finished photos. Check out more information in the description below this video, as well as a list of all of the supplies used for creating this custom sublimation water bottle from Artesprix. You can use any of the Artesprix sublimation products, including the ink pads, ink refills, markers, or sublimation paints as well. Here are a couple still shots of the finished product. Make sure to check out the Artesprix blog as well for additional information, and all the links are provided below. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.